Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you. It's a real privilege. I'd like to sort of re-anchor us on where we came from so we understand where we're going. And I'm going to try to answer two questions if I can. And the first one, very clearly, is where is the technology going? And I'm going to go back to some first principles so that you'll, I hope, appreciate the dramatic changes that have already happened. And I hold a certain amount of awe of what appears to be unfolding before us right now. I'm not going to try to be Kurzweil and tell you when the singularity will occur and computers will be smarter than human beings. I'm not going anywhere near there. I'm going to try to stay in 2015 back to today as I talk about the quote future. So first of all, you have to realize that there have been 5 technological revolutions under what's roughly known as the Industrial Revolution. And I'll show you some of the impact of that. But there are 2 things on this chart you want to see. We're number 5. Typically, they last roughly 50 years. And of course, that's set off a whole set of economists thinking about that. But what's interesting is how the leadership has changed from wave to wave, if you want to call it that. And then one of the questions is, how long will this current information technology revolution continue? Biotech is the one that is most people's guess, or nanotechnology for the replacement. Now, in history, it's a continuous flow. You know, it's like Heraclitus. You cannot step into the same river twice because new water rushes in upon your foot. Change is the only constant. But we pick these arbitrary dates, like the milestone of the first message, and we say that's when it began. And so a lot of people use 1971, the Intel processor, as a benchmark for when this 55-year period began. And what I want to show you is a productivity statistic there. 900,000 times more transistors on that chip made now than 37 years ago at a lower price when you adjust for inflation than it was 37 years ago. Can you name another industry for me that has followed that trend, that trajectory? Why don't we try automobiles? A Mercedes S400 today would cost 10 cents, 1/10 of a US dollar, if it had been on that same trajectory. And of course it isn't. It's an $82,000 car. It's that productivity that I want to keep coming back to over and over again, because we've seen lots of stories about the internet and entertainment, the internet and the way it's changed our lives, and students keeping in touch with each other, and the way we do research. All of that is true. But we are on the cusp, I believe, of a change that will be in the productivity of knowledge workers equivalent to what Henry Ford did in manufacturing. I'll show you why. So this is Carletta Perez's, if you may know that name, the economist, famous theorist of these waves. And the question is, how long will this one go on? The answer is to about 2024 if we follow the pattern of the last 4. But she says this is not like the first 4 because it is hitting more people and more deeply. Therefore, because of its global scope, she thinks this is 2040. So you still have time to amortize your student loans if you're a graduate student. Okay. Now, this is the amount of information that some people in my shop, I run Cisco's consulting group, innovation group, working with MIT, have come up 5 exabytes of data, unique data, not duplicates of data, unique information was generated in 2008, which, if that's even halfway true, is equal to all of the information that was generated in the previous 5,000 years. But remember this number, it's doubling every year. And so one of the things I want to drive home, by the way, every human being on the face of the earth in 2010 will have 128 gigabits of data somewhere in the world. Now, they're not all walking around with hard drives, that's not my point. What I'm saying is if you divide the data that exists in the world by the 6.3 to 6.5 billion people, it comes out to be 128 gigabits. So when you look at the machine out there and you talk about 1K buffers and things, you get an idea of what's changed. The big message that I want to leave, and it came out in this last group, is it's all about video. And somewhere between now and 2012, more than half of the consumer traffic on the internet will be video. We have something called telepresence, which is large screen, high definition television. My first meetings this morning were with General Electric. My last meeting tonight before I get to go home is at 9 o'clock, telepresence Shanghai to a government official. I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have traveled. But telepresence today uses more bandwidth than the entire internet in 2000. Everything that went over the internet in 2000, after the dot-com, or at the peak of the dot-com bubble, everything that went over that, we, one company and people we've sold telepresence to, duplicates. And so you need to think about the scale of what's happening to us. One of the most important things I try to remind people is the data got out of the containers. And that's what the movie story was about, and the music story is about, the newspaper story is about. And at one time, you bought a vinyl record, there were, or albums, 12 songs of which you wanted 3, but you had to buy them all because they came on one product. And then it became portable because we had little tapes, but then, bang, you were able to download it. And now people are buying individual songs instead of, quote, albums. And once it got loose from the container, this is the key point of the whole internet. Once it got loose from the container, it could appear anywhere, in any form, including mobile forms. And here are some of the ways that you see that. What you're seeing is convergence between business models, crashing together because of the convergence of the underlying technology. This is a Morgan Stanley chart. I'm going to use 3 of their charts from 9 days ago. Because they really drive home a point. We think in terms of computers and then personal computer, you had mainframes, mini computers, personal computers, local area networks, the internet, the network of networks, and now the cloud. It's all just more and more distributed because we can manage it. But the number of mobile devices, mobile internet devices, is what you ought to watch, because very, very shortly they're going to dominate. There are about 3 cell phones in the world, 30% of which are smartphone capable, even though they're not used that way, for every one PC. And that number is going to explode. If you've been out in the middle of nowhere, I was in a country the other day where just the most primitive conditions, and yet everyone had a cell phone because they needed it for their business. There are the numbers on that I added to their chart. The iPhone has become a spectacular success. 74% of all MP3 players sold are the iTouch iPod that's built into the iPhone. I believe they are the largest distributor of download music now, with 18%, ahead of Walmart. But the issue here is this particular device perfectly illustrates the confluence of the mobile internet with voice, data, video, and so on. And look at the green line, the one over here. In 9 quarters, they achieved 57 million units. So all I'm trying to show you is AOL and all these things that we know about that were our hallmarks of rapid advance. All of those are dwarfed by the take-up in one particular product, which will probably be challenged by Android. This is another Morgan Stanley chart. Circle the word platforms. It is no longer about an application. It's no longer about a device. It's that some people are able to bring you and everything you ever wanted to do around their world. And yes, they are going to try to hold on to it. They are going to try to monetize it. And it's a platform. Look at YouTube. Every minute, 20 hours of video are uploaded. We heard that from Google. It's on this chart. Look at Facebook, and we'll real quickly look at Facebook. Facebook has brought together other people's applications as well as your telephone. Now I have presence, I have location awareness, and all of these things are feasible because they have created an environment in which you can use all of the things you want to do in one platform. How much does it cost to use Facebook? How much do you pay a month for Facebook? Well, it is not a charity. It's not the Holy Brothers of Facebook. A religious sect giving us this. They are beginning to monetize it, but that is a very important part, and that's what our last conversation was about. Now I want to answer the second question. If you believe the first part, that we're on this incredible trajectory, dominated by any content on any device, any place, quickly and securely, then you ask, what are we going to do with this power? And I'm not going to spend too much time on the consumer side of it because a lot of you know it and it's obvious. I want to twist a little toward the business and government. First of all, look at this chart, which is U.S. Census data, recreated because they weren't here at the beginning of the world. This is, as best we can tell, the history of the world population. And that blue line is just the regression line that you would have gotten forward based on literally thousands of years of history, 10,000 years of history. And something happened in a period of a decade to 20 years that changed the carrying load of this world we're in. And then it changed again after World War II. There are now 6.3 to 6.5 billion. I don't want to argue because I don't know, but it's somewhere in that range. People on the face of the earth. They think the earth can't carry more than 9 billion. And we're on a path that one asks, will that continue? Will it flatten out? Will there be a disaster ahead of us? I tend to be very optimistic. But those two arrows that point to the change, where you found a change in the slope, are due to what? Technology. It's the story of what you do every day, changing how the world lives. Now there's a problem, and I'll net it out for you really quickly. I'm going to use European data. And here's the net. We're living longer because of medicine and various things. And outside of the developing nations where there's a youth bulge and not enough jobs, which is a very dangerous combination. But in the developed world, you have people living longer and you have fertility rates that are not at replacement level. There is no country in the European Union, the original European Union, 25 I think that was, that is at fertility rate of replacement, 2.1 children per woman. Ireland is the closest and they're under 2. So Europe is shrinking. The United States would be shrinking except for immigration and higher birth rates among immigrants. Japan is worse off than Europe. And what it amounts to is very shortly, every pair of people, you have 2 kids, they're going to have to support one of you. That's because you didn't save for it. When I say you, I mean your age group. And that means every time they eat dinner, there's an invisible person they're feeding. There's an invisible person down the hall. There's an invisible person at the doctor's office that the bills are coming to them. It has to work out that way. So it's also true in China because of their one-child policy, which they're now loosening for certain groups in the urban areas. And here are the choices you have. You want to delay retirement, it ought to be 72. This picture here is a march in Italy to protest the proposal to raise the public servants' retirement age to 58, and it should be 72. You need to cut benefits by more than 1/4. You need to raise taxes, and you need to start right away. 2013, they're going to start drawing, or you need to raise productivity. How many people want to vote for productivity? Okay, most people say, let's try that one first, okay? And that's what this story is about. Henry Ford, what did Henry Ford invent? Not the car. What he invented by watching them take away beef in slaughterhouses is he reversed it and he built cars by leaving the worker there to work and not having them move from car to car, and he increased their productivity. I'm going to share a couple of charts of why collaboration, why technology drives collaboration. It allows you to find people and resources. It allows you to connect with them. It allows you to share data, giving and getting, which allows you to act, produces results, and every action produces data that you can then search. Here are the names of things that you have and build, like instant messaging and email and Google search. And all of these things fall under one of these 5 categories. I'm going to make the assertion that we're at the place right now in collaboration where ERP was in 1991-92 with lots and lots of little point products, and they're all going to be combined into a couple competing programs. All this says is science depends on groups, not individuals anymore, and it's because of cheaper communications costs. The last example in here is GE. GE had 780 locomotives are parked on sidings right now because there's not enough traffic. 1,000 airplanes are in the desert in Arizona because there's not enough air traffic. Those aren't candidates for engines or locomotives. But GE has a booming business in healthcare in China and India, but they want to pay $15,000 for an ultrasound, not $350,000. Their engineers are here, the demand is there. What do? The answer is we're helping them through telepresence and a whole set of everybody's products, including their own, work shoulder to shoulder so that they can deliver the engineering where it's needed. Health presence is another example where you can visit a doctor. We did a physical 14,000 kilometers away on the president of a particular country the other day with the doctor in San Francisco and the patient in Asia. Did it securely and privately. And this isn't just seeing the person. All of the vital signs are going through in the high definition cameras. If the people in the back of the room will push the action button that's up at the top, because I can't. Do you see it up there? Thank you. I'll try to stay within my time and say, I've just given you a small sampling of what I believe is changing. Healthcare, The next slides were about climate change, how we're working with NASA, the auto industry we're working with. All of these industries that are 100 to 130 years old, the making of movies, for instance, are going through a transition because of this information age, the digitization, the distribution. It's all good, but there are going to be new winners and new losers, is the message. Collaboration will release a new productivity that will keep that curve fed for another 50 years. Thank you for the time.